Let's talk Merrimack. I'm your host for today, Jen McInnes. I've been in New Hampshire all my life, and I moved to Merrimack about 17 years ago. Today I just want to shout out the MYA Boys U11 travel soccer team who just won the championship for the spring season. So well done, boys, and well done, coaches. The goal of this show is to talk about things that concern Merrimack residents and to encourage y'all to get involved with the town. Today's show focuses on a fantastic organization in the state called New Hampshire Outright. And I am joined by the Reverend Heidi Carrington Heath, Executive Director of New Hampshire Outright. Welcome, Heidi.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to be here.
Yeah. If you could just introduce yourself a little bit for our viewers.
Absolutely. Hi, friends. I'm Heidi Carrington Heath. I serve as the Executive Director of New Hampshire Outright. We are New Hampshire's oldest LGBTQ plus organization and the only one with a dedicated focus on young people and their families. I'm so excited to be here today.
That's fantastic. So I want to start with some context about New Hampshire Outright.
Yeah.
That was helpful, but I understand it was Seacoast Outright, founded in 1993, recently changed scope to become New Hampshire Outright, expanding its reach outside of the Seacoast area. So how long ago did it expand into the statewide venture, and what's the work of New Hampshire Outright?
Absolutely. So right you are. We were founded in 1993 as then Seacoast Outright. A group of parents gathered at the University of New Hampshire, and they said there's all these resources to support parents and caregivers of LGBTQ plus young people, but there are no resources for kids. And what can we do about that? And out of that conversation, then Seacoast Outright was born. And so the heartbeat of our work has been for over 30 years providing safe peer support spaces for LGBTQ plus young people, mostly middle and high school aged, and their families. And for a long time, we did that work in a really dedicated regional way over on the Seacoast. And in 2025, we made a shift to becoming New Hampshire Outright. And so now our work in a variety of ways serves the whole state.
That's a big shift and a welcome shift. I'm sure that takes a lot of effort to get North Country, out west, Seacoast. That's a lot of space. Has the current landscape shifted the focus or expanded the need for the efforts of New Hampshire Outright?
Great question. I would say absolutely yes. You know, we are in a really tender and difficult moment here in New Hampshire right now for LGBTQ plus young people and the people who love them. The legislative landscape here in New Hampshire has been really, really challenging over the last few years. We have seen any number of pieces of legislation targeting this vulnerable population and their health and well-being. And what we know is when that happens, no matter the outcome of that legislation, there is a cost to our young people. Seeing the folks who are in power, who should be charged to protect them, debate their personhood in public over and over again takes a toll. And so we have certainly seen in our arena an uptick in a need for safe peer support spaces, for spaces where young people and their families can come and just take a deep breath, know that they will be seen and be heard and be understood. And I think for our kids in particular, spaces where they can show up and just be kids. And this isn't a thing that they have to talk about unless they choose to do that. They just know that they will be with other peers where maybe for the first time all day or the first time all week, they're not defined by their identity. They have access to safety and joy and community in really important ways. So we've certainly seen that need grow and continue to grow, and we anticipate that that will be true for the foreseeable future.
That's profound that a space like this is where they aren't defined by their identity.
Yep.
And we don't think about that, I think, in the mainstream with children.
Yeah.
But that's profound.
It is. I think, you know, people sometimes imagine what they think a peer support space looks like. And I think they might think of it, folks who are watching might think of it this way. as a space that is heavy or where that's all that kiddos talk about. And in fact, if you came to our offices in Portsmouth or one of our satellite sites around the state on any given time a youth group was meeting, you would see a lot of joy and a lot of laughter and a lot of community connection, because folks are just looking for a space to get to be kids and to know that within that space they'll be fully understood.
That's fantastic. In the month of Pride, Merrimack recently had our own Pride celebration. It's our second annual, and I think of it as small but mighty.
That's right.
There was one in Milford. There was, I think, one recently in Concord. So we are in the thick of it. New Hampshire outright hosts the Portsmouth Pride, I understand. Can you share the history of Portsmouth Pride?
Absolutely. So we proudly claim the title as first Pride in New Hampshire. So when we came onto the scene now over a decade ago, there were no other Pride celebrations happening across the state. And since then, we have seen this beautiful growth of everything from small communities hosting their own hyper-local prides to Manchester has a robust Pride celebration, Nashua has a Pride celebration, and so on and so on. And for us, this really, Portsmouth Pride started in a chapter where the organization really needed that kind of boost and that kind of visibility, and has just grown into a beautiful community celebration of joy and family and community.
That's great. So that is the 20th, right?
Yes, June 20th in Portsmouth from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and our after party starts at 7 o'clock.
Okay, fantastic. We'll try to get the word out about that. There may be some folks who don't see the work of New Hampshire Outright as meaningful to their lives in particular, right?
Yep.
What would you say to someone who thinks of this as kind of a niche or specialty sort of work that is supporting the LGBTQ plus community, and as a result is kind of segregated with that population?
Oh, I love that question. I would say really simply this, that when our most vulnerable populations are able to be seen, be heard, and be themselves, all of us as individuals are stronger and our communities are stronger. So all of us should be invested in the work of creating spaces where our most vulnerable populations can be well cared for. And our communities are only as strong as how we care for our kids. My staff hears me say all the time, there's no such thing as other people's children. All of us collectively should be invested in the work of how we care for and how we support our children. And our communities are only as strong as they can be when we do that work. So this work, while it may seem like, well, this is only for this particular population or this particular population and the people who love them, ultimately this work is really about all of us. Because when our most vulnerable kids can thrive, all of us can thrive. And we are really rooted and grounded at New Hampshire Outright in the work of creating a granite state where everyone can live free and thrive.
Live free and thrive. I love that. And that idea that there are no such thing as other people's children really harkens to that. It takes a village.
Yep.
And we can all be part of that village. Literally, that's what it means, right? So
right.
Wonderful how New Hampshire Outright is filling a piece of that support. I'd like to hear about your work in a more personal way.
Sure.
Could you share a story that about how this work gives meaning? What gives this work meaning to you?
I sure can. Every fall we host kind of a program year kickoff. And so it's a chance for folks to come meet us, meet some of our partners, learn about the work that we do. And we try to make it fun. You know, there's fun activities for family. We offer things like free gender affirming haircuts. And a couple of years ago at our fall family kickoff, one of our youngest Outriders got to have their first gender affirming haircut. So they got to really feel like their haircut helped them feel seen and they felt like themselves for the first time. And I got to see that young person take that in and just whole face lit up in this huge smile. And I thought, that's it right there. Like, that is the reason we do this work. For maybe the first time, that kiddo feels seen and safe and loved in a new way. And at that same event, I got to watch one of our young people meet one of their queer elders for the first time. And they said, I've never met an LGBTQ plus person as old as you are. And in that moment, right, that's future. That's legacy. That's, I know that can be true for me too. And both of those examples for me are just so core to why I do this work and why we do this work.
That's great. I imagine that that's part of the beauty of Pride too, is bringing together all sorts of folks at all ages and stages of life, so that and the youth can see all of that too. I mean,
that's right. I mean, Pride is still emotional and meaningful for me as a queer adult who has been out for over 20 years. And I always am thinking about the young person who gets to see for the first time, here is your community who loves you. Here are all of these people who are showing up to say, we care about you. Before you ever walked into this space, we thought about you and we wanted you to know that you were loved and you are welcome here.
I love that. Community is so important, and I think that especially in New Hampshire, it can get lost. Identity can be hard in New Hampshire at times if you're not sure you know who your community is.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about my own kids. You know, it's such a fragile age, right? 10 and 14 right now.
Oof,
not knowing who your community is, not sure, like, they're already not sure who they are, but adding an additional layer to that makes those really fragile years even more difficult.
That's right. And we know the data tells us really clearly one supportive adult for an LGBTQ plus young person reduces the risk of suicidality by 40%.
40%.
40%. And all of us have the opportunity to be that adult for a young person in your community. All of us have the opportunity to show up in a way that can be life-saving without us ever knowing that might be true. And so that is really a piece of what we're about, is providing that extra layer of community and care and safety.
That's fantastic. And I imagine that if you feel that support in your adolescent years, that must help as you grow into the young adults and older adults later on. Yeah, that's fantastic. And the New Hampshire Outright is an organization that folks can support monetarily. So if you visit the website, newhampshireoutright.org.
www.nhoutright.org.
Perfect. That is a great way that all of us can pitch in for Pride. And I wonder if there are some other ways that folks might support either New Hampshire Outright or look to support community in all its forms. If you have any suggestions for folks to take away from today's interview.
Yeah, so two things I would say. One of which, please come to Portsmouth Pride if you are in the area. The more the merrier. We love a big, beautiful showing of strong community and joy. And the other thing I would say, if you are an adult who seeks to be a supportive grown-up for the young people in your life or in your community, our kids need to see you and our kids need to hear you. So show up, speak out, use your voice. And if you are a business owner or something in that vein, think about what it might mean to display a visible sign of welcome on your business or your organization, because what that says to one of our young people is, before you ever walked through this door, we thought about you. Before you ever walked through this door, we wanted you to know this was a safe space for you and you are welcome here. And that matters more right now than perhaps it has in a long time. Our kids really notice and see those signs in the community. So speak up, speak out, and help our kids be seen, be heard, and be themselves.
I'll double down on support for posting some sort of sign of support, because that's also a set it and forget it way to make sure that you're always communicating that support.
That's right.
I put a welcome sign at my office where I teach, and just recently had a comment about it. I posted that sign 3 years ago. It's never stopped being true, but it's also not something I have to necessarily remember every day to make sure that I'm communicating it to the people who come in.
Yep.
So that's a great idea. And so I know folks can get in touch with nhoutright.org through the website. That's also where they can find a lot of information about Portsmouth Pride.
Yep.
Tons of information there. And I think, unless you have any other takeaways, that might be a good place to wrap up.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Jen.
Okay, well, thank you, Heidi. Thank you for taking the time to come out today. Merrimack, that's our show for today. If you'd like to learn more or donate, again, visit nhoutright.org. We'd like to hear your ideas for shows and comments and feedback about the shows we have offered. So email us at talkmerrimack@gmail.com or follow us on socials or YouTube at Talk Merrimack. I look forward to our next conversation.